This is Recruitment Agency Ignition with Andy Whitehead. Helping you build your recruitment employment business fast. Using digital and automation and one-to-many systems, tools, and inbound strategies.
So 6 months later, just from a revenue perspective, where are you now? How does that sit now?
So where we are now, we've had three placements confirmed. Fourth actually has been. I need to chase that up a little bit. It's sort of
Excellent.
It's been interview signed off and everything. It's just not started yet.
Okay.
So that's for all of that, and that leaves us in the bank at the minute. They're all low level roles within hospitality, so they're only sort of $2,000 a pop. So there's about 8 in the bank at the minute, potentially 10 whenever this other one lands. Realistically, over that 6 month period, by the time we were kind of ready to actually go, obviously it was a bit more haphazard along the way. But when I look back pragmatically, September is realistically when we were kind of ready to actually sort of jump in.
Right.
And so that's when it happened. I think by the end of September, we had sort of 5 clients on, and there's a couple of those that we've still got open, which we're trying to they actually came on mid-October. The ones we're still trying to, some of those we're trying to sort out.
You must forgive me, Kieron. I think the document that I've done when I'm trying to put it on PDF has missed some of the spaces, but I'll go through the questions as it is. So 8 to 10K now, obviously, have grown since then. And then since starting the business with RMI, how much at that stage, how much in growth? So that's the 4 placements so far. Is that correct?
Yeah. So 3 we've been paid for. 4th is waiting to land. Is up in you.
Fine.
Waiting for a date, basically.
Okay, and I know there are some questions that I'm going to avoid right now because I haven't got the actual space to put it in there. But so where we sit now, then, what are your top 5 goals development needed assistance in from Andy as we sit? Where do you sit right now?
I just have these written down. I mean, there's a general one, which is again one of the reasons I kind of got into RMI, was partly about the nurturing campaigns, which I haven't started yet. But also sort of general kind of authority marketing strategies. I guess certainly one way that I've had to pitch some of our services to particularly very experienced recruitment teams within hospitality companies.
Yes.
The minute they look at our LinkedIn, we only started 6 months ago. They look at my background, it's not particularly relevant.
Okay.
And so the way I've been kind of pitching is, this is kind of progressive system that is, it's built, it's there.
Okay.
Proof in the pudding is, give us a test, basically. So that's what for the more experienced clients. For those who, there's others that actually we're able to just sort of walk straight in and sort of get the job done.
Fine. Okay.
So authority marketing, definitely the nurturing stuff. I think, in terms of more short-term stuff, actually one thing we spoke about on the phone earlier, which I didn't actually bring up on the Facebook group. I think it was Simon and Darren talked about it.
Okay, yeah.
Which was about the LinkedIn connections export and where the email addresses have gone, and sort of how to broach that, how people are going to broach that in terms of double R kind of thing. Okay. The reason I bring that up because one of the other 5 was a bit more of a specific target, which was just want to try and get another sort of 4 or 5K on the table by end of play in December. But that issue with the emails coming off,
right?
It's just a little hurdle. I want to sort of see how I can get over that, because that would have been my first port of call. Really, I've got loads of people sort of being added all the time. First port of call would have been, let's just whack that straight into double R. Right. Now there's a minor hurdle around that, so just need to work that one out.
Okay, well, I'm going to reassess that, if we may, in a bit, because I think some of the people out there won't be aware of that, and I want to try and highlight that myself. So when we go to questions later, I'm going to bring that up as a question in general, There'll be a few people scratching their head now, going, "What does that mean?" Because I agree with you. Because Kieron and I were talking everybody earlier, and there is this. We think something around LinkedIn around you can't now export the email addresses when you on your first connections. But what I'll do, Kieron, is I'll come back to that as one of our questions in the general questions later.
Yeah.
Come up to that.
Yeah, sure.
So, but everybody else, and Kieron, please bear with me. My screen is as best as I can do it, but these are some of the things I wanted to just ask about because it's interesting. Of all the things that we say at the beginning of the conversation, the journey with Andy, let me just go back onto that. Sorry. There are like a few 4 or 5 different strategies. We say, look, try and get these off the ground as quick as you can. And when you start to look at some of the more successful models across the group, you try and take pieces of them and go, well, they're doing really well. Why don't everybody do that? Well, they're doing really well. Why don't everybody do that? So coming back to you on this page, retained business. Have you managed to secure any of that since you joined?
No, but you know what? Actually, one of them was my own sort of failing. Really, I think I could have done.
Okay.
There was one. Yeah, there was one where there's actually a few roles came on the table, and it was my own sort of. Well, I was very excited, to be honest, to have loads of roles on the table, so I just sort of gone through it. And afterwards, I was like, oh, actually, I could have turned that into a much better opportunity. Lesson learned, and I'll do that the next time around.
Okay, fine. And I'm not going to go into the commissions now per se, because I think that we kind of covered that in terms of what it was. Do you have a retained strategy out of interest? Just from my perspective, do you have a retained model that you're trying to achieve, or does that really not come up within your niche?
I haven't at the moment. Yeah, I mean, I haven't thought about it, to be honest, at this stage.
Okay. Can I ask you this then? Let's put the question a different way, because I think it's probably more relevant to you and or to the conversation. What's your model then? Now let's talk about your model, because I don't think people would know actually what it is specifically that you do, and indeed what that's around. So let's talk about that. So what is your niche? Your niche. So I say niche quite a lot, as you probably know, because we have a lot of Americans on the call. We say niche in Europe; they say niche, tomato and tomato. So what is your niche? Your niche?
So it's hospitality within the UK. At the minute, we're kind of sort of more focusing on where we are locally, which is the southwest. So anywhere between sort of the Bristol, Cardiff, down to Exeter region, but also up to kind of Worcester, the Cotswolds as well. Basically, we're kind of looping into that.
Okay. So the focus at the moment is southwest as it sits. Okay. And what are the kind of roles that you place there?
So at the minute they're quite low level. So front and back of house, sort of management roles or supervisory roles really, is what we've been placing at the minute. And that's what we're actually getting more of all the time. There are already, there are sort of certain roles that are coming up more. So we know there is a clear challenge with a few. We've got a couple of them already at the minute, which are, they're sort of, there's a shortage of people in the industry, and geographically as well. It's kind of true to form. So there's a couple there that are trickier to fill than others.
Sorry to jump in. Geographically, you mean in southwest specifically tends to have a geography issue? Do you think for that?
Just sort of in terms of I'm not being very clear there. In terms of some of the clients we've got, which are a bit more regional, so not within the city centres, for example.
Okay,
so
fine.
Hotels and sort of inns and things like that, where if people live in the country, I don't know what it's like in maybe certain other areas, but if work is more than 20 miles away, people are they turn their nose up at it. They can't fathom going that far.
And also, of course, in the city, you tend to be an abundance of people from all perspectives, whether it be in hospitality, catering, or whatever. You've got London, and it's there are literally millions candidate-wise, but trying to get them to go to Bristol might be a challenge sometimes. Okay, and so in that supervisory management perspective, what kind of salary ranges tend to be, Kim?
20 to 30 at the minute is the ones we've been looking at. So I mean the fees on those have been between 2 to 3 really, with what we've placed so far. And I mean, the fee actually is something I could talk about putting up. I guess we started quite low at the 10% on those. Really, I mean, long term we want to go up the ladder, but obviously being new to the sector and everything, there is an argument to say really we need to earn our stripes to be able to do that. But long term, we definitely want to go up the ladder. To obviously get those higher fees in.
Do you
for the same work? Obviously it's a very different conversation, but.
Do you at this stage have you got plans for that? Have you got any specific right now? Do you go, okay, we're setting up a new strategy that's going to do this in January that's going to help raise the either salary range or geographical range or percentage range? Have you got
I mean, in terms of twofold really. So we've got I guess we'll go into this in a little bit on LinkedIn's side. So slightly tweaked who it is we're actually inviting in to connect. So sort of going higher up there. What I had been doing, again, sort of within our budgetary constraints, was trying to broaden my connection base with people who could be client or candidate. So that kind of mid-level kind of role. So sort of general management, that kind of thing. Really, they were the main target. And coincidentally, that's been great. I've used VA and a mixture of VA and Linked Helper to do that. When I came in, I had 80 connections on LinkedIn, and some of them were like, Stinky Uncle Errol from a Gmail. Now we've got 3,000, and I think maybe 3,100 as of this morning.
80 to 3,100. So from 80 to 3,100. Have I got that right? Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's and that's from. And I didn't start that till I think I was about 4 weeks behind on it, so I didn't start that till about May.
Okay.
Before I actually sort of got my arse in gear and got the LinkedIn strategies moving.
One thing I do want to ask you then, who does that? You said that you now went from 80 to 100. If we just go back to there on LinkedIn, who did that for you?
Yeah.
Please.
So started out VA. So I've used Mr. Backoffice and have done since the start. I've got a VA through him, and that's been great. I mean, he's actually been brilliant for me because he's known from the start that I'm I've already jumped off the cliff and I'm trying to build this thing as I'm sort of flying through the air. And he's been very good, very patient and very understanding. Okay. So I started off with him, and then Linked Helper came on the scene, and I did trial that. But I kind of interchange. At the minute, I'm using Linked Helper on LinkedIn because I'm trying to utilize my VA for candidate search, which is on the job board at the minute.
Okay.
Half and half.
Interesting, isn't it? Because I think from my perspective, what I know it's a different VA, but my VA from my perspective, like you, was just like, well, how do I get from where I was? And I was about 3,000. I mean, I'm a bit older than you, Kieron. So, from my perspective over here, I think I had 3,000, but now I'm knocking on the door of 12,000. So just to say, more importantly, for everybody listening, I think this is why it's key. Whichever, Andy's a big fan. Kieron's obviously a big fan of Mr. Backoffice. And I know a lot of you in the group are, but irrespective, you just got to get a VA doing that, haven't you? So it's somebody that does it in the background and it's creating the data. And as far from my perspective, going just from that alone on the left there, from 3,000 to 12,000 for me, but also from you going 8 to 3,100, that would never have happened if I didn't have somebody doing it for me.
No. I mean, it would be completely unrealistic to think I could hit that number, particularly because I'm working from home. We've got a toddler. We've got this other stepchildren in the house of mine as well. It's like a madhouse in here sometimes. Not forget the tortoise as well. The tortoise is an absolute nightmare.
That's part of the deal.
Practically, to be able to manage all of that as well as getting on the phone and having conversations with people.
Okay.
It wouldn't have happened.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. So again, forgive me for the bits. I'm going to fill in the blanks later, and I'll fill in accordingly. There are some of the questions that I specifically wanted to ask you. Just at the moment, we talked about the constraints that you had before, and I'll put them here if I may for now. Some of the things you said, you had no recruiting experience at the time. Is
Yes.
that right? Okay. And again, I don't know whether you have your sheet there. That's something we were talking about. So there was no recruitment experience, which I think to everybody else, that's probably one of the biggest hurdles, I would imagine, at first. How did you find that?
Yeah, it was quite daunting. I mean, I'd kind of, obviously, whether or not we work in recruitment, you've had some experience with it. Either being on the candidate side, but also primarily within some of the other roles I've had. I work very closely with sort of in-house recruitment teams and other people in it. So I did have a very good idea, or I thought I did. Anyway, actually, obviously doing it practically, learn an awful lot. But yeah, in terms of paid man hours doing it, yeah, zero. Zilch.
Right. Okay. And at the time, I think when we talked, or something when you talked to Sarah, I think there was you didn't have any tools at the time.
No.
There was specifically, I think this is quite key, everybody. There was no website. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. No website. I had bought the domain name from GoDaddy for however much it costs, like £5-10, something like that. And that was it. Yeah, so I had the domain name, I had the company name. Nothing else.
Amazing. No, most amazing. I genuinely think it is, because I think if you go into recruitment anyway, from my experience, it's a difficult industry. I think you've got to be a certain kind of person that wants to do this. You've got to have a certain attitude to want to go into it as well. And not least of all, if you're going, right, okay, well, I'm going to go and do it in an area that I've never done it before and start, I take my hat off to you. I really do, because I think it's if I wasn't in recruitment prior to it, I don't think I would have gone into it. Is my point, I suppose. And like you said, we've talked about that before. So at the time, we didn't have a clear niche. I think some of the ones, I'm just looking at the form that you're in for us, Kieron. No specific LinkedIn, as we talked about, but in this case, it was 80, and no clients and candidates. Tell everybody about your corporate structure then. We've got it on the page there. Let's see if we can talk about that, because I think what people don't realize as well is when you do start this stuff is where do you start it from? And you mentioned obviously your small family, but what's your in speech marks, what's your corporate structure?
Well, I mean, yeah, it is pretty. It's kind of just a partnership at home, really. It's myself, a partner, and then we've got VA involved as well. But I mean, yeah, it's at the minute it's very, very singular. Obviously, plans for expansion. I'm hoping. Well, that's actually one of the things I put in the form there. Actually, by March, I'm hoping actually we'll be able to extend that. There's a couple roles I want to bring in, which are not necessarily recruiting roles, but more towards the sort of online marketing kind of side of things. But I guess that's a conversation for another time, perhaps. Yeah,
no, indeed, but no, and I guess that's, as you say, part of the actual process you've now got is how am I going to develop that? Because one thing we did want to talk about is what we do try and advocate. Certainly, I would advocate to everybody listening is what do you actually want to get out of the inner circle? And it strikes me that the biggest two things are a constant stream of candidates and live vacancies. Clients and live vacancies, constant stream of candidates, and moreover from that they would then start to tell the world that we're actually good at dealing in that particular niche. It's as simple as that. And I guess when you start to put in brief structures already, I'm sure your partner said to you, okay, yeah, I'll help, I'll go for it. So you've got a tick there. Then you go and get a VA. You're now thinking about plans for the future. And I think from where we were, as you say, 6 months ago when you and I first spoke on the strategy session, it was like, well, yeah, okay, let's do this.
Discover how to build your recruitment employment agency using one-to-many automation and inbound strategies before anyone else in your market specialization. Check out recruitmentmarketinginternational.com.